absolutely.
Melanson and Heath is an auditor, and I do want to say this because I've gathered from what I see in a lot of school districts that Manchester is actually very much better than most of you. Our audit is presented to our full school board every year in public session. It's on the agenda. And then it gets referred to our finance committee, and our finance committee will sit there and drill down on whatever the audit turns up and work with the administration to make recommendations back to the board on changes to it. So if you want to see the Manchester School District audit, which, by the way, is actually pretty good, you can find it right on a board agenda or a finance committee agenda. It comes out usually, I think, in somewhere between March and June for the prior year.
One of the websites I'd point you to,
We run a fiscal year by
Government Finance Officers Association, GFOA. The GFOA, that basically will give you a list of, there is a plethora of audits. I actually did not realize that. I did not realize how many different audits there actually are that are out there for municipalities. And one of the ones that it's typically not done is what we did is a internal control review. And those are good. I would highly suggest, if you haven't done one, to go ahead and do one. You'll be surprised with the information that comes out of that. Some of those that I mentioned just briefly, I mean, we had issues, we had $15,000 worth of iTunes gift cards, MIA. We had instances where we had GoPros, iPads being mailed to home addresses. We had $500,000 worth of IT equipment go unaccounted for. We didn't have a fixed asset inventory list. That's something, if you don't have one, I highly suggest you go ahead and purchase software and start inventorying what you do have. I mean, it is taxpayer dollars that are being spent. We had instances where we could have an individual enter an employee and delete that employee as well as vendors and be completely in charge of that. And the reason why that's notable, because I could go ahead, enter vendor A, go ahead and pay vendor A, and unbeknownst to the board, and then go ahead and delete vendor A from the system, and you would have absolutely no idea where the money went. We had checks written to cash. They had a copy of the treasurer's stamp, and there was checks that were being written to cash. We had PayPal accounts, credit cards, $183,000 in our internal control review. That's another way to go ahead and avoid controls. So one of the things that we focused on was segregation of duties. Basically, not one person allowed to go ahead and do all those things. Segregation of duties, policies, purchasing policies, limiting the amount of money that one can purchase without going ahead and requiring a dual signature. Those were the types of things that we put forward. We had a lot of policies pretty much come out of this internal control review that basically turned our district around. But these are the things, I mean, I think I saw some statistics. It was 19% municipal of the fraud is municipal fraud, and so it exists. And a lot of the things that we knew about, we were shocked when Melanson and Heath came back, because we thought we knew everything, but what did we know? We knew about half. And they flipped over the other stones, and I'm sure there were other stones that went unflipped. But it was implementing anti-fraud controls. We implemented whistleblower policies, because a lot of the staff knew about these things, and it was hard for them to come forward because there was no avenue for them to come forward, or they'd be fearful of their job, and rightfully so. We had an individual who lost their job, unfortunately, prior to us getting there, for that very reason, wanted to come forward, and there was a court case. It's a public court case that went forward, and it was unfortunate. So we went ahead and we did that. The other thing that you want to look at is fund balance transfers. Any transfers, and this is something that you guys have the power to do. I mean, this is under your purview. I mean, this is your board. This is not the administration's board. The public put you there. This is your board. So a lot of this stuff is common sense, but you're gonna get pushback, and you just say, hey, look, I was elected to do this. This is my job. I'm sorry you disagree, but it's my job I was put here for this reason. I take my fiduciary responsibilities very seriously, and I would review every manifest. I would go through every single invoice. I didn't have a $15 million a month budget. Mine was only $50 million a year, but and it was daunting, you know. But you had to do it, and there were things that I caught all the time. I remember catching duplicate Apple bills. I'm like, why are we paying this twice? I saw that invoice last month, and sure enough, we were paying it twice. And it's a second set of eyes on it, and as you know, it really should be 5 set of eyes if you're a 5-member board. But I got some questions.
Do you have a mic? Try this. Probably wouldn't be a good idea.
Is there,
I think I've talked to you.
Yep, gotta turn it on.
It's, I turned it on.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? No.
Right into it?
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Let them, let's skip.
Can you hear me?
Give it a second, sorry. Good, try it. Yep.
There you go. Okay. I think I talked to you before about some of this. Your business administrator was a piece of something. He went on to another.
I don't know what that something is, but I'll agree.
he was tall, dark, and handsome. Tall, dark,
He
and
went,
handsome.
he went on to another school.
I understand.
And that school has since, as I understand it, named the superintendent. We have a lot of this in the school system of the state, of moving people from one school to the next, and their record doesn't follow them. And nobody knows, and they go ahead and hire them, and then they're stuck with them. It's true with police chiefs and everybody. What can we do to stop that?
I know exactly what you're talking about. I refer to it as the turkey trot. And you basically, at the end of the school year, you know, all of our turkeys trot over to another district and vice versa. And it's basically just an exchange.
I don't think that it's, the record's not following them, it's, I think they all know each other, it's incestuous.
Yep, yep, turn it on.
Yep.
It's not that the record is ignored, it's that they all know each other. In my opinion, it's a very incestuous, it's a small state. So it's that they know about it and they just don't care. They're scratching each other's backs.
Board's responsibility to,
Yeah.
Yeah.
no, I think
I was going to say that. You know, it's the board's responsibility. I mean, most of these people get media coverage somewhere. If you do a search for their name, you know, during the time, all the stuff that Tom was talking about, for example, oh, we had so much fun with that on the radio show, and if you were to Google any of it, all of that stuff would come right to the top. You know, when we hired Dr. Vargas, I was on the superintendent search committee. You better believe a media search was part of what we did. And so when we interviewed Dr. Vargas about all this stuff that was in the media from his superintendency in Rochester, New York, we asked. And they had to pass muster with us in order for, it wasn't just Dr. Vargas, it was every candidate that we interviewed. We did a media search on to find out what was being written and said about them in their home communities. So it's up to the board to pay attention to current events, for lack of a better term, and to ask the questions that need to be asked when something like that pops up. Bill?
no, I agree completely.
Another question, going back to two things. First, Bill, what you said about stone-faced school board members. We have a policy in Guilford, and I know it's in force in other areas as well. And I'm hoping that the legislators who are in the room at the time can take note of this, where they've set their own policies in such that they will have a public comment session, and you can say whatever you want, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, what have you, but you're not allowed to ask a question. They will not answer. Not only that, but they have a policy that says you cannot approach us directly. You have to go through your school administration first, and yet these are our elected representatives. So that's the first question. And then the second question goes back to the what's going on in the classroom, and that we don't know what is going on in the classroom. We've had similar incidences in Guilford where inappropriate material was used, and they failed to do the parental notification, and the response, the official response was, oh, oops. And it's very disconcerting because, frankly, a couple of people got arrested in my hometown over this, trying to get answers out of the school board. What are some of the remedies? Thanks.
The two questions. We also had the policy where the school board just had to sit there and take it. But that was their own policy. Since then, if we have an agenda item and somebody wants to talk to that agenda question, we go through the material and then ask the public if they have any questions about it. So we have some freewheeling discussions, and the board can reply, even though it's only an individual response. It's not a board decision. If they want to know, why a certain check, well, we don't really have those questions because our checks are posted as part of our agenda. So anybody who wants to go through our checkbook, they can see it. We don't have the same kind of problems that you guys have, only because of people like Anne Marie Banfield. She was the one that really got our check register posted, and now we don't even think about it. We see $1.5 million a month of charges, and everything is publicly out there. We can face any of the questions. We're not trying to hide from the people, and I think that's what either administration is trying to do or what a school board is trying to do, and we're not, hiding from the people is not what our role is supposed to be. As far as going through the process of asking questions of a school board, you can talk to us. Our emails, our phone numbers. You see us on the street, we'll be happy to answer any question that we can. But there's a chain of command too. If you have a problem with a teacher, don't come to us. Go to the teacher first. If you don't get satisfaction from the teacher, go to the principal. If you don't like that, go to the superintendent. At that point, come to the board. So it's not a question of us trying to pass the buck. It's more a question of not trying to get us involved in the weeds, because that's not our role either. And to skip the second question about materials, because of the nickel and dimed and water for elephants fiasco, we actually have a board, a commission that actually studies new material. It's made up of parents, teachers, high school students, and I think one sitting board member. And everything that wants to be read publicly or read into a class has to go through that process first. So we don't get parents bushwhacked by material showing up in class that is probably objectionable to any parent in particular. So again, I don't know if it's best practice. It's more a question of why would we have a personal interest in offending the parents? Because these teachers want to have want to show these kids some titillating material. That's not the school board's role. That's not the school district's role. So yeah, these things are all resolvable. It's more a question of how open do you want to be, and we're not hiding, we're not running, we're not trying to cover anything up. We can be only as open as we can be.
Crop TV.